mixed martial arts fans, and welcome back to another episode of the Calf Kick Experience, a special episode, our first ever fighter interview, and we're here with Brendan and Badger O'Reilly. What's going on?
Hey boys, what's happening?
Much. I was about to say, just getting ready for some fights.
Yeah, it looks like a pretty good card coming up later today, so it should be good.
Yeah. I think we want to start it off by just tell us a little bit about yourself.
I obviously was a professional mixed martial artist. I still am coaching. I still train every day and still coach every day. I came up obviously in Australia. I'm from Australia, and then fought internationally and earned a UFC contract. Fought in the UFC, and then now I'm living over here in the US with my fiance Jessa. So life's pretty good.
Hey, can't complain.
Yeah.
So you came from Australia. Looking at your background, it said that you went to college and got a degree, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I got a degree in. I nearly forgot what it was there. It's a science degree, an applied science degree in production animal science. So basically, like ranching and that sort of thing. And my major was beef cattle production. Yeah.
I think it's interesting that you see martial artists go to college, but like most of the time it's like American wrestlers, and that's kind of like their thing. They go to college to wrestle.
Yeah.
I think it's very interesting to see a martial artist go to college and then decide that he wants to fight afterwards. Or I don't know, you can explain that a little bit more. But
yeah, so it was. I started boxing in high school, and I was like saddle riding, and I love riding horses and stuff. And I played a lot of rugby in high school too. And then when I went to university, I was still boxing and kickboxing. And but I wanted to do something with horses after, like, even though I majored in like production animal science and beef cattle, I wanted to work horses and stuff after. And then horse flu hit Australia, which was a lot like the pandemic that we're in right now, but it was for horses. So you couldn't like transport horses around.
Right.
Like you couldn't go to one property and go near a horse and then go to another property and go near a horse. So it sort of shut down the horse industry. So I was just sitting there going, man, what do I do? And then it was weird timing, but a buddy of mine who was just a huge fan before it was cool, he was just a huge fan of MMA, and I didn't know what it was. He showed me, he gave me like a burned DVD of George St. Pierre highlights, and I was like, wow, what's this? And he goes, it's called mixed martial arts, and I could do that. And there was like one gym in the city near where my university was, so I would drive an hour and a half in and train maybe twice a week, and then I was living out in the country, and I would like run on the country roads and hit the punching bag and sort of like train myself. And then I took a fight like pretty quickly after that and won, and then the rest is history.
Do you think that you're like a pretty gifted athlete to begin with? Like you just had like the athletic gene?
I think like I'm fairly athletic. I think I definitely am not unathletic, but
No, that would be me.
But I think more than just being like a gifted athlete, I think I just am really. I'm willing to put in the 1%ers that maybe other people aren't. So I would get up super early and run, and I'd spend hours honing techniques and like watching tape. I used to watch a lot of tape watch fights with the sound off, so that I wasn't kind of getting distracted or swayed by what the commentators were saying, and I would just watch the techniques of fighters that I wanted to emulate. And so I think that, coupled with a decent athleticism, allowed me to kind of get a bit ahead of the curve. So yeah, it was good.
And I guess what kind of drew you to boxing at first, like as opposed to rugby and all the other stuff you said you were doing? I figured you'd be a rodeo cowboy from Australia to Bernie, Texas.
Yeah, well, I did do all that at the same time. So I was playing football, playing rugby, saddle bronc riding, and boxing. And to answer your question, what drew me? I mean, I loved rugby, and it was my family were really into it, so I did a lot of that too. But the thing about what I enjoyed about boxing, and after high school, why I kind of kept doing it was it's that like solitary, like it's just you versus. It sounds so cliche, but it's like you versus you,
Yeah.
So in a team, you could have a bad day, and luckily, like you might get carried a bit by your team, or they might have a bad day and you have to carry them, which has got its own challenges. But in boxing or combat sports in general, like it's just you, and you're accountable for your action. I like that accountability. Like if you don't want to put in the work and you don't want to face the truth, then you're not going to go very far, because like the truth finds you. The truth, like in a team sport, the truth won't always find you. You can kind of dodge it a bit and you can maybe push the blame elsewhere and whatever. But in combat sports, the truth's going to find you, So it's pretty cool.
So riffing off that, you said that you like the individual rather than team sport kind of setting. But you did like rugby.
Yeah.
That was kind of like your athletic upbringing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I played that the most growing up. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I love team sports. And I miss that too. So it's weird. I love team sports and I love being a member of a team, but it was just that it was kind of I think it just brings different qualities out in you. Being a member of a team and in a team sport, it'll force you to work well, obviously work well with others and be part of a team. And if everyone in the team, in theory, if everyone in a team does the job they're meant to do, the team should be successful. And that's what's good. It's you working out what is your role and you getting it done. And if you're a leader, keeping those around you accountable to fill their role. That's what I loved about that. But what I loved about the combat sports was that you kind of were on your own. It's kind of lonely, like you're out there work, and it's lonely like mentally, like internally, it's very lonely. Like you have to face, like if you had a bad day in the gym in sparring, you had to like face that and reconcile that and work out how to do better tomorrow. And you do have coaches around you and that sort of thing, but it forces you to kind of be okay in that like loneliness mentally that a lot of people can't handle. And that's why I think people revere fighters at an elite level, because they maybe have a something in that sense that the average person knows that they might not be able to do, which is to survive in that darkness on their own,
That's pretty intense. The mental toughness part always gets me, because anybody in this sport that's high level is so incredibly mentally strong.
Mm-hmm.
Not even just on a day-to-day basis, but in the actual fight, in front of fans,
Mm-hmm.
and that kind of just like the pressure on you. It's like focus.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, and it is tough. I mean, like I obviously used to think about it when I was competing, but yeah, like now it's weird. It's funny now. Like I can kind of look at it from the outside now because I'm not so much in there, and it is really tough. And I think there's all these other challenges in the sport as well, and with the lifestyle in general. But if you can take the things the qualities that it brings out of you and keep those, and still manage to integrate it into the rest of your life, because obviously being a mixed martial artist, a professional mixed martial artist, is only going to be for a small window of your life. And I think that's what the chat for me. It was the goal was always to take those qualities and keep them, and then be able to use them in the rest of my life, because and that's that was my goal, and I hope to see like other guys that are real successful also be able to use that, because sometimes you see that it's tough, but you see some guys that are they're incredible in the sport, and then in life. It's almost those same qualities that make them incredible at mixed martial arts. They kind of hinder them in everyday life, So for me, the goal was finding that middle ground that you can be a normal person.
So yeah, I guess tell us a little bit about what life's like for you now. You were talking about your leather working earlier in the gym. What's the gym called? And I guess you're still training and coaching as well at the same time?
Yeah. So yeah, life for me now is I build saddles. So like I've always it's weird, but like that was before anything, or at the similar time, like when I was a young teenager, when you first start kind of having an interest in stuff, because before that, used a kid running around, I guess, climbing trees and whatever. But I loved saddlery and leather work, and was always interested in it, and like the tradition of it and where it came from, why it was built a certain way, and all that stuff. But I also loved. I don't know if you guys know of the book. It's called The Tao of Jeet Kune Do, which was like Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee wrote this book. It was like his personal journal, and then after he died, they published it, and it's basically just photocopies of the actual pages he wrote on and drawings he did. And it's essentially mixed martial arts, but from way before mixed martial arts existed. So I was obsessed with like making saddles and that book, which is probably why my life ended up wherever it has. But yeah, so like now, yeah, I build saddles for myself, obviously, or not for myself, but I build saddles myself and for people.
Yeah.
And I still, I train every day. Here in Bernie, Texas, there's a gym called Grindhouse, Grindhouse Training Center, and it's like a world-class facility. I was just super impressed when I walked in there because it's, I've obviously been able to travel the world and train at a lot of places, and the facility is just second to none, So, I get my training in there and help some of the guys there with just sharing my experience with them, because that's one thing I got a lot out of when I was learning was just a guy who'd kind of been where I wanted to go, just sharing, not even necessarily like teaching me anything, but just sharing some experience with me and stuff. So I do that with those guys, and it's pretty fun. Keeps me out of trouble.
That's got to be a pretty rewarding experience too, because like you were kind of telling us before we got started, you have guys that you've been coaching since they were 16, and now they're beating people up on TV and looking pretty good. So.
Yeah, exactly. So the gym that I founded and owned in Australia and now is owned and run by my friend Jason. It's called Game Bred Academy. The shout out to hello to everyone who's there. There's too many of the guys, the guys that I coached when they were younger and years ago. There's too many of them to try and name them all individually because I'll forget someone. But that whole team is doing so great, and the gym's great, the team's doing great, and I'm really proud of them. Just seeing some of those guys that were like you said, teenagers when I started coaching them, they were like 16 or 17, and now they're in their 20s and they've multiple title holders. That like most of those guys have won at least like one title belt domestically, and they're starting to fight internationally, and they make me super proud. So it is a really fulfilling thing. And at this stage of where I'm at, like in my career, it's really nice to give back. It was really tough when I was fighting full time to also be coaching full time, because it was just tough. I was also self-managed, so I didn't like have a manager when I was fighting. So like I'd be doing all my own like management stuff and like any sponsor stuff and whatever. So that was tough. And so what I'm just trying to give back like all the knowledge now, because it'd be a shame to not do it. So yeah.
I have a question. Nowadays, Australia and like New Zealand, they're like a real hotbed for MMA. You have Adesanya, Volkanovski. Those guys are just so good, and obviously both being champions. Is there anything from that region like that makes a great fighter? I mean, you are like one of the best early adopters.
You know what? They put something in the water out there. What are they feeding you boys?
Yeah, it's kangaroo meat. No. Yeah, that's a good question actually, and I think so. There's a couple of factors that I think contribute to it. One, it's just Australia is it can be like a tough. It's a weird. It's a very friendly place to grow up. I think everyone's friendly and loves having fun. But it's also to a degree like like a bit combative. Like people don't really take a backward step, like, you know, in that culture. And I think maybe that has a little bit to do with the fact that like it was a convict colony. I don't know if you guys know that. Some people know, some people don't. But like Australia was a prison colony for Great Britain. That's how it was basically settled. Was they would ship all their worst prisoners to Australia and dump them there. So I guess just over generations, Australians have they love having fun, but they're also ready to throw down. But I think another important factor too is striking was always a really big, like boxing has always been very big in Australia, and more so probably than boxing is Muay Thai, because we're so close to Thailand. We have some awesome Muay Thai champions like come out of Australia. The most notable would be John Wayne Parr, and so like our striking's always been really, really high level. I've heard like good Thai boxers from Thailand say the next best, the best Thai boxing you can get outside Thailand is in Australia. So there's that. And I think what was holding back Australia for years, which now it's turned a corner, was one, I think everyone was trying to emulate like Americans in the UFC, as far as like guys come up in America, they might be like a Division I or an All-American wrestler, and then someone, say from Australia, who's got real good striking, goes, well, I need to get my wrestling as good as that guy. The reality is you're never going to. You're not going to catch up a lifetime of wrestling. So I think what Australians have learned to do with guys like Rob Whittaker, Alex Volkanovski, and the New Zealanders that are doing really well, like Brad Riddell, Israel Adesanya, is like have enough wrestling to stifle and stop people countering you, and then just get what you're good at so sharp that it really troubles people. So it basically was like do what you're good at, and that's why I think Australia's really turned a corner now, because there's that mentality. And also what was maybe stifling people a bit in the day was an Australian would get good enough, they'd make it in the UFC, and then they'd move to the US, which you couldn't blame them. I mean, they had to be able to get that level, but now you don't. I mean, that gym that I was talking about earlier, like that I founded and my friend now runs, Game Bread Academy, like you could definitely train to the UFC level there. I mean, I trained for fights and won in the UFC from that gym, and it's gone, like it's skyrocketed from there. So yeah, Australia's just really coming. It's kind of a few years behind America as far as it's just catching up now to that standard, but now people are going to really start seeing some big things from there. So it's exciting.
I think just kind of expanding on that and going on that idea, we're talking about how many good fighters are coming out of Australia. So that regional circuit and those local fights that aren't on TV and aren't UFC have got to be pretty awesome.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, it's cool. I think one thing I've noticed with Australians, the ones that obviously, I mean, there's people that take things seriously in any country, and that's the thing you got to do, is be the person that wants to take it to the next level. So you can always roll up to some amateur or some regional fights that are a bit like, whoa, what's happening here? But the good ones, like you said, are really impressive, and I think it's because the guys in Australia, that they may not be in a position yet, whether it's financially or whether it's they're just not at that level yet, to say travel and come to the US and see gyms over here. They're always kind of playing in their head, they're playing catch up. So they're always trying to train harder because they think they've got to play catch up.
Right.
Whereas if you're a guy that was you grew up 20 minutes away from AKA or American Top Team, you might take that for granted. Whereas Australia, it's like you can't take it for granted because we're so far away from everything. So guys train hard, and you see grapplers like Craig Jones coming out of there, who's like maybe one of the best grapplers in the world now. And then we've got like Rob Whittaker, Alex Volkanovski, and New Zealand's got their own guys coming up and not even just coming up, but they've got like Adesanya, who's champ, Brad Riddell, who's doing really, really well. So Yeah, I think, man, it's just exciting. But to answer your question, yeah, the regional fights are awesome. I love watching those. I mean, I commonly will watch some fights from back home that guys send me, the guys I used to train, and they're every bit as good as a UFC quality fight, if not better, you know? Yeah. So, yeah, it's exciting.
Yeah, I mean, Volkanovski, I believe he was a champion in one of the Australian promotions before he came over to the UFC.
Yes, multiple actually. Like, I can't remember them all. Sorry, Alex. But he had a bunch of belts before. I remember fighting either on the same cards as him,
Really?
or I would yeah. I mean, I think there would have been a time when our trajectory we were probably going meant to fight because he used to fight at one. I think he had at least one fight at 185, and I
He was
saw
like 220 before,
yeah, yeah,
he was a big guy for being 5'6" or whatever he
yeah,
is.
and I saw him fight a bunch at 170. His only loss ever is at 170. And so he just kind of went down from there. But yeah, he was around a lot of the same regional promotions that I was around, either fighting on or I had my guys I was coaching fighting on those promotions. And yeah, he's just a good guy. And yeah,
Uh, let's talk about the Ultimate Fighter and your experience with that. That was pretty awesome.
yeah,
That's where I was gonna go because we binge watched the shit out of it. It was a great season, but there's definitely maybe a 2-second clip of Volkanovski at the tryouts. So
oh yeah,
I
yeah.
was about to say that's got to be something you're pretty proud of that made the show and he didn't, and now he's champ.
Nah, like he, yeah, yes, no. Good old Alex is he's just a good guy, and it's funny, you know, so many of those guys. There was also at that tryout. Who else was at that tryout? Anton. So here's a weird one, a weird story, and then we'll get back to talking about the Ultimate Fighter. But at that tryout, also was my buddy Anton Zappa, who's a really good welterweight, and he ended up fighting in the UFC. So I got injured before one fight, and he replaced me. So he ended up in the UFC. He went to that tryout and wasn't on the show, but he ended up in the UFC. But he and Alex actually have fought like domestically. So there's a ton of fights out there, and also like gym battles. You know, there's guys like a bunch of us from Australia that would all spar or wrestle or whatever. And if people could have seen that, it was pretty cool. But yeah, I was thinking that the other day when I saw Alex coaching his own season of the Ultimate Fighter, you know, and I thought it's just, man, I just am really happy to see his success because he put in the work. Like he would go, he went to the Ultimate Fighter tryouts and didn't get in, and he kept fighting, and he just kept fighting on the domestic circuit until he made it. And I know I remember talking to him, I don't know if it was at a fight or if I was training with him like before, I think I was training with him. So that the fight where I got injured before it and then Anton took my place, I think I was training with Alex a little bit. He came up and did some sparring with us in wrestling. And I was talking to him there, and he was still obviously fighting on the regional circuit then. And he was working for his dad, like concrete. So he'd like concrete through the day, and like that's hot and hard work.
Yeah.
And then he'd go train, and then he'd fight. I mean, he's earned every bit of success he has. So yeah, I think, and the thing I love about him, Alex, and Rob Whitaker as champions for Australia, is like how they're just good guys. You know, like that's what I'm so proud of those guys, that they've made it, but they've not like changed or compromised who they are. They're like good family man and just good guys. So man, I'm stoked for Rob and Alex and all the guys all my buddies that I see getting success. Like my friend Jake Matthews is still in the UFC. He's having some good success. So I'm just happy to see all those guys.
Talk to us a little bit about that. Like, what was the tryout and the auditioning process? How did you end up eventually making the Ultimate Fighter?
Yeah, so the tryouts for the Ultimate Fighter was you had to firstly you sent in your record, your Sherdog record, and they look you up and probably look at some videos, and then they invite you to the tryouts. And I think there was like 400 people went to the tryouts I was at, or 400 or 500 people.
Kudos to you for making it out of that many. I mean,
yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, it was a long shot, but it was one of those things that like I love taking long shots. I love just kind of being an underdog and taking long shots and taking those risks. I don't see it as a risk, you know. It's not like you're losing anything, but it's like a long shot, you know. But
that's kind of what we're at with this whole podcasting thing, man. We're just trying it out, and you're doing us a huge favor by being here.
Nah, it's all good. But it's one of those things, like you got to have, if you have the courage to start like this and put it out there, then you never know. If you don't try, it's never going to work.
Exactly.
You know? So the process was that. So you put in your application and got an invitation, and then from my season we went to Sydney. And firstly, I was just stoked that they put us up in a nice hotel, because at that stage, like I was, I had my gym at that stage, but the rent was really expensive in the gym, so I was either like staying with my parents, or sometimes I'd even like just sleep at the gym because I would coach till late at night and then start coaching again early in the morning. So I would sleep at the gym. So when I got to go to Sydney and they put us in like the Hilton, I think it was the Hilton. I was so excited, and that was like my first taste. I was like, if this is what this life's like, then I'm all the way in. I'm all the way in. So that was cool. So we went to there, and then let me think of so back then the matchmaker was Joe Silva. He's left now, and it's Sean Shelby and Mick Maynard. But Joe Silva was the matchmaker, so he was there. I can't remember if I think Dana might have been there the first day. A couple other people, but they were sitting at this like a table, like you're on like The Voice or American Idol, like this is like where they hold up, you know, numbers. Yeah. So they're sitting at the table, and they go, all right, so we're gonna grapple. All the guys are there, like hundreds of guys, and they go, you're gonna grapple. First, we're going to test your grappling, and they just pick up some lists, and they've just obviously put it together. My season was welterweights and middleweights. So and they just go down the list. They've obviously just matched the weights up, and they go, Brendan O'Reilly versus whoever, and you have to grapple right in front of them, just you two, and they just watch you. And obviously, I mean, so you don't know who you're grappling until like they say
until you're there.
That's almost a little bit ridiculous.
It's wild, because you can only imagine how like next level some of those matches get, because these guys are like, if things go badly here,
they still fighting for their life.
for your thing. So you grapple there, but it was like something short, like 3 minutes. Because I mean, they've got 400 or 500 guys to get through.
Yeah, right.
So they're giving you 3 minutes maybe, and the reality is, and if you get subbed, that's it.
Oh yeah.
So if you get subbed in 30 seconds,
you're out.
Yeah.
Go home.
So man, that was pretty wild. And then they after that they do pad holding. So they have they must find some local coaches from Muay Thai gyms and whatever, and just say, can you just come hold pads? So it's that in itself is tough enough, because pad holding is it's almost like a personal thing between you and your pad holder. And if you have a bad pad holder, or not a bad pad holder, but if you
miss,
if you guys don't have that rapport yet, and again, I think you got like 2-3 minutes, and so they're like, like jab, cross, hook, and they might hold different to what you used to. So that guys were just getting like, that was a test mentally of like, keep it together, because if guys got too nervous and tried to throw harder than they usually would, they're missing the pads, and the other thing is, so you might be going for 30 seconds. I remember I was going for like 30-40 seconds, and Joe Silva walked around and he goes, Brandon, that's enough. And I was like,
that's cool.
Yeah, but you don't know if it's like, that's enough because you suck.
I guess in hindsight, it's cool. Probably not in the moment.
And you see guys start like he'd be like, "That's good." After 10 seconds, and you see him be like start freaking out, like, "Do I suck that bad?" Like he only had to see one kick to know that I'm not ready, or
Right.
but then you don't know if it's that or he's like, "Yeah, good enough." You know?
Right.
But in hindsight, they essentially, I think, had like a short list that they kind of were thinking of, and then they just want to verify, can you really do what we think you can do, you know? So it's not like in your head you're like, I'm fighting for my career here, but the reality is they kind of know who they want to a degree, and they just want to make sure, okay, he can really grapple. He didn't just have because they don't necessarily know. If they look at your record and
The competition.
you're 6-0, they don't know if you're a real good kickboxer and you've just fought guys that cannot take you. They have no takedowns, but once you get taken down, you suck, you know. So yeah, they just want to verify all that. But the process, like looking back, it was just funny because you just have no idea. You know, most of us a lot of us were young. Well, no, not necessarily. Dan Kelly was on it, and that guy's like 140 years old. But like, and no, I love Dan, and he is experienced. So he'd been to 4 Olympics.
Yeah, judo.
He'd been to 4 Olympics for judo, and the dude just a competitor, and so he knew like those processes and whatever. But then the other end of the spectrum was like the young guys. That were
Tyler and Jake weren't even 20. I don't think.
Yeah. Tyler was, you know, Jake was young but super, you know, serious and all that. And then Tyler, and this was like, again, this was a strength of Tyler's. Like it's not a knock on him. It's like he was young and just didn't care, but he cared about being good at fighting. Yeah. But he didn't care about all the other things. Like, you know, he would make weight and then go get KFC, and didn't care if that's, you know, he was a phenom, that guy. Man, it would have been. I would have loved to have seen what he could do. Yeah. You know, in a full career. I don't think he never has fought since the show.
Oh really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
No, never fought since the show, which is like a bummer because that guy was a real talent. But yeah. So and then just to finish the process, so they made us do that stuff, and then they basically just interviewed you and made you think, made sure that you could talk. You know, because they didn't want a guy that I guess.
I mean, it's part reality show,
yeah,
right?
It's part reality show, and then and then also like longer term, if you win, or even if you don't win, like in my case, like I didn't win, but I ended up getting a contract. They want you to still be able to engage with fans and build the sport and build the brand. So they made sure people could like at least talk.
I have a question on that. Did you think that you just like completely screwed your career after your first fight? I mean, like what was your process going in? Like you're the first one picked, the nerves.
Yeah.
Like did you just think like, I just blew my chance out of the UFC?
Not really. So the going into it, the timing was weird in that our plane. So we flew from Australia to. I don't know where we were meant to land, but our plane hit like a flock of geese going there. And,
that's the most Canadian thing I've ever heard.
Yeah. What? So we ended up landing in BC in Vancouver, and we stayed. I can't remember if it was 1 or 2 nights. We stayed some time in Vancouver, and then they got a connecting flight to Montreal where we had to go for the show. So by the time we got there, we were a little bit late. Like we were meant to have some days to kind of like get into it. Yeah, and so and then I remember saying, so are they gonna just push it back? And they go, no, this is a production, like this is a TV show, so we're running it. So I was like, oh man. And I remember thinking in my head, well, the chances of me being first fighter is pretty low. Right. And I didn't say that though, but I was like, yeah, it's probably pretty low. And then they announced their first fight, and I'm just like, oh. But I I was feeling pretty rough. We were all feeling pretty rough, like from the jet lag. Because I think we went. I went Brisbane, Sydney, LA, and then that's when we hit the geese. So we were all kind of tired and whatever. And I just remember I was a bit like thinking, oh man, this could be rough. But I also remember thinking, if I start freaking out, I didn't want to freak out the rest of the team, you know. And then I was thinking like, yeah, you know, like worst case, if you're freaking out about jet lag and then you lose, then the guy has to fight after you.
Right.
He starts going, oh man, like, and starts freaking out. So I was like, A, it's going to be bad for me if I start worrying about jet lag, and B, which I kind of cared about even more in a way, was like I didn't want to freak my team out. Like I ended up being like really close to that team, like as you would be after living with each other and stuff.
So the show really showed you as like a glue guy. Like you brought everybody together.
Yeah, I think I was, and I tried to be too. Like, because I'm just a real team. I love a good tight team, and yeah, we were just. I mean,
I'm sorry, the part of the show when you like confronted them about talking shit behind your back was the funniest thing.
That's what I was gonna say.
That was like that was the first day. I still don't know if I'm pretty sure they were. And I'm pretty sure there was one dude he's got no balls.
I think I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, his name's Luke, and there's probably others, but there's one guy named Luke who's just got no balls. He's probably still out there. So anyway,
don't worry, we talk shit about fighters all the time on this podcast. We just hope that they don't find us.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't care if this guy does. And Bernie, Texas, come down, and because I remember asking him at some point if he'd done something in the show, and he was like, no. And then when you see it after it was him, I'm like, dude, go hand your dick in. You were
definitely the enforcer for sure. Like especially I love the part where they drew some things on y'all's pictures, defaced your lockers, and you had to go take care of business by cutting the head off the moose.
That was hilarious.
Yeah, I forgot about that. I'm gonna have to watch it again because someone told me about it recently, and I was like, did I do that? But I must have just been like, not
you
gonna
were
take
pissed.
it. Not gonna take it. Yeah, so good times. But yeah, in the end, obviously after the whole thing, I was and still am friends with like a lot of the Canadians. They were actually like real cool crew. There was a couple of guys in there that were just weirdos and kind of like, not a ton of integrity in a sense, but their own team kind of didn't really like them. I didn't, but I get along a ton with a bunch of those Canadians. They're good guys, and it was just good old fun time. But yeah, I think I never answered your question. So no, I did after that loss. Like I didn't think I'd blown it. I didn't even think that long term. I wasn't like, oh, I've blown it. I just was like, man, I'm here for like 8 more weeks or I think it was 8 more weeks because it was literally the first day. And I was like, I can either like spit the dummy and just like, not waste time, but I'm still going to be here. So it's not like you going home. So
you just worked on improving yourself?
Yeah, I just said, man, I'm here. I got world-class coaches, world-class training partners.
World-class facility.
World-class facility. And even my training partners, like, were world-class coaches in their own sense. Like, Daniel Kelly is like, he coaches the Australian Olympic judo team and his own MMA team. And, like, Richard Walsh is now a coach at the UFC Performance Institute. And those were guys that I was, like, training with. So it wasn't only my coaches I got to ask things and learn things from. It was my teammates. So I just was like, I just threw myself into the training so hard and actually ended up doing really well competitively. Like in the rounds in training, I was doing well against all the other guys and stuff. So it made me realize, I can operate at this level. And it made the UFC also see that I could operate at that level, but also was like committed enough to be professional at that level, because it's one thing, and this is a reason you see some guys that they'll be talented and you think, why aren't they getting their contracts? And then, but they're too much of a risk maybe, or you know what I mean? They're the kind of guy that might have some success and then go punch an old dude at a bar. Something weird like.
Shout out Connor. Connor's the only one getting away with that.
Yeah. Very John Jones-esque.
Yeah, and man, it was just so I honestly am glad things went the way they did because that loss, but then still longer term having like success in a sense of getting a contract and being in the UFC, I think that was better for me than getting some easy wins maybe, and then getting in the UFC and not having that test, you know, like that was a real good test for me. So.
I mean, the guy you fought had like, I think, over 20 professional fights at that point, which is a lot of experience.
Yeah, he was really experienced and was talented, and I should have done better. I know I could have done better. I know I could have won that, but it's easy to say because I didn't. But I know that's what is annoying is I know I could have done way better, and I just, a lot of that was just that it was more the mental worrying about the jet lag than anything really physically. Like, yeah, physically it kind of, you didn't feel great, but I've been in situations now where I felt physically worse, and mentally, basically, as far as fighting at a high level, I was mentally inexperienced, you know?
Yeah.
And that's, you hear that with commentators talking, like experienced commentators like Daniel Cormier and stuff, you'll hear them giving their expert opinion on that, and it is true of like a guy can be really talented and really like physically look like an Adonis and he has a perfect record, but he gets to the UFC and he maybe hasn't encountered those like challenges that that someone outside, and that like to me I think that may be what happened with Conor in the Nate Diaz fight. You know, like he was super talented and was a great fighter and came up and got all these great wins, but he'd never gone through that like the crucible of fire that was like some guy being able to take everything you give him and he's still there. And I think in that Nate Diaz fight, he was like, damn, this guy's not going away and then he started to try things that he shouldn't have. And that was the same as me in that fight, you know, like I just did some dumb stuff that I wouldn't usually do, and that just comes down to, I think, experience and calmness under pressure, you know, which comes back to experience.
I guess specifically looking at that fight, I believe Cajun Johnson was the dude's name, but is that somebody you think you'd like to get your hands on again? Maybe run that one back, considering you said you could beat him.
Yeah,
and
man.
Kind of a shit talker.
He kind of was. I ended up not really having a problem with him, to be honest, because the thing is, he would talk, but he would also talk shit to you. So which I honestly don't mind. Like, what annoys me worse is if a guy's talking shit and then when you're there, he's like really nice. Yeah. So I don't have a problem with Cajun. It would be fun because. Because it would be a nice challenge to see. Okay, like I think I'm confident I can win, but it'd be fun to see. Right. But I'm not sure what he's doing these days.
Actually, I saw he just filed like a major lawsuit against the UFC.
Oh no way!
What was the company they used to go through before?
Zuffa.
Yeah, against Zuffa and the UFC. Him and one other dude.
No way!
I'll have to get over here on my computer and pull it up. It's like a $17 million suit, something like that. I can't remember actually.
Oh, here it is.
Yes, CBW Cajun Johnson filed new lawsuit against UFC and Endeavor.
What about?
Let's see. The lawsuit filed by Johnson and Dalloway alleges that Zuffa violated antitrust laws by paying UFC fighters far less than they were entitled to receive and eliminating or hurting other MMA promoters. So, fighter pay.
So it's the same as the other one. There's another one going on right now, which is a class action. I'm wondering why they've done it when there's another one going on.
Get their own bag, who knows? You know?
Man,
I was about to say, crazy world, man.
it is a wild world, man. Hey, like, who knows?
What are your thoughts on fighter pay? Like, underpaid, obviously very different.
Yeah,
it's very strange. Like, it's a strange
system. Like, I would like to see it improve for guys in the future, for sure. So, like, I'm kind of like in two camps over it.
I would like to see it improve for guys in the future, because when you look at other sports that, man, I remember training, like professional footballers from Australia, like rugby league players and stuff would come train with me when I was at my peak, and they were just bringing their arsehole was blowing out. And, like we train at a level where like very few athletes in the world. I've had world-class triathletes come train with me, and to be fair, like if I went and trained with them in their realm, I'd be dying too.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is the level that we train at in mixed martial arts is comparable to any other sport, like NFL, NBA. Like we are elite professionals, but the pay isn't for the company, or it isn't like comparative to that. So I would like to see that improve for young guys in the future. But in saying that, like I knew what it was when I got in there. And, you know, it's kind of like, the analogy I always tell people, 'cause it's probably a bad analogy, but whatever, is like if someone said you can date the most popular girl, the hottest girl at high school, but she's going to treat you like crap. But if you want, like everyone else wants to date her, and you can be you can be the guy. But don't whinge when she treats you like crap and dumps you maybe.
I mean,
and so then you go, okay, well I can say no, and I was never the guy that got to date that hottest girl at high school, or you can, but you got to take what comes with it, which is like.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying the UFC treated me like crap. I'm just saying like I don't understand when guys willingly jump in and fight for years, and then as soon as they get cut or whatever, that's when they start, you know what I mean? It's like, I don't quite get that, but I do think that for the level the sport's at now, because it's changed, even in the time I've been doing it, it's changed a lot. It went from being a fringe sport to being a mainstream sport, and the requirement of, like, to be able to compete at that level, you need to be training full time. You need, you know, and it's hard. Like, there's a ton of guys still. I was always working while I was fighting, so, and I'm sure Alex, like Volkanovski, maybe when he first got in, he probably still was concreting, you know, so it'd be nice to see that change for guys in the future.
Where they can have like a sustainable like lifestyle off of just fighting.
100%, because I could have been, I mean, the UFC wants the best fights. I know for sure I could have been a way better, I could have had way more success if all my focus was on just wake up. Like, there's two, for whatever reason, some guys are able to get sponsorship. Maybe they have something, you know, they've got an OnlyFans, or who knows. They got a family or friends. They might have like just a person who's got a lot of money that really backs them and says, I'll support your lifestyle. And that guy could be fighting another guy who works laboring or landscaping all week and still is training at night.
Right.
And so my
Stipe's a firefighter.
Yeah,
that's ridiculous. See, that former heavyweight champion of the world has a day job.
Yeah, so, and that's what's tough is like, it'd be like you see two football teams line up, and I don't even know the positions, but you know, all the linebackers on one team. Also, one of them's you know, works at stock and shelves at HEB, and one of them does some landscaping, and you're like,
they're not going to be the best that they can be because they're not devoting, you know, their life to it.
Yeah.
Although they are to their best ability.
Exactly. So that's what, for a lot of reasons, one, mainly, I guess, for the fighters and their families, I'd like to see the pay improve, but also it's like, if you really care about the quality of fights, it'd be cool to just see guys in a position where if they get contracted to a particular organisation, then they can kind of go, sweet, this is my focus now, and they can be training and getting, you know, like massages and doing physiotherapy, and just the sky's the limit then, you know. But yeah, so I think it'll be cool to see it improve, and I'm sure it will improve. But I'm also not sobbing in the corner about it. Like I had the best, man, I had a great time, and I am almost more proud of being in that era of like trailblazers where like in 20 years when it is like it's like guys that were in the NFL in kind of like probably like the 60s, you know, where they're like, back in my day they wore the leather helmets or whatever and stuff. I can kind of do that in a long time when guys are rich from the sport, and they wouldn't have got there without guys like me, and same as I wouldn't have got there without guys that came before me, you know. There was, I mean, I can't whinge, there was guys
that illegal and underground days.
It was fighting in like, it was basically illegal, and then when it first came around and the guys were fighting for like $2,000, which is like, and that on like a world class stage. Like I remember, I don't know what the early pay was in the UFC, but I remember hearing the other day that some of those bigger fights were like still relatively like no money, you know. So so I got to be, you know, hopefully guys in 20 years are grateful for people from my era, but I also got to be grateful for the people that came before me, you know.
I think you're definitely like a trailblazer, like you said. I mean, you got into the sport right when it started hitting its upward trajectory, at my point, you know. I mean, I think it's not necessarily peak, but it's at the highest point.
I mean,
today.
it's skyrocketing now.
Yeah, I mean, it's a mainstream sport and people don't look down upon it. There's no, I guess, negative connotation with it.
Exactly.
Now. So I think, you know, the UFC's done a good job of marketing and, you know, obviously the content is just phenomenal week in and week out. I think one thing that like casual fans like want to know is like the sportsmanship. Like we see it all the time after fights, even after a KO loss. Like there's good sportsmanship. There's no disdain, even though they might talk shit. But like, can you kind of guide us through like the sportsmanship of the sport?
Yeah, I mean,
you see a ton of good examples of it, and then you still see, usually after the fights, like you said, you don't see that much, but sometimes before you see a bit of trash talk or whatever. But I think after the fight, like there's just this natural, like innate respect you have for a person who is willing to step in there against you, because you obviously at that level you believe you're the best, you know, capable of being the best, and if this guy's got the courage to step in there against you, you have at least a level of respect for that. And then after you do battle, go back and forth, and you land some good stuff, and they might land some good stuff, and you just have this respect that you may not be their friend or want to be their friend. You respect the fact that they did that, and so I think it's
one of the really good things about the sport is that it brings out that in opponents, and I love seeing that. You know, it's good.
I mean, I think it's great. I mean, a lot of people, like, I think even when I first started watching the sport, you just see like these guys just literally just try to kill each other in the cage, right? And then afterwards, like you know, shaking hands, hugging, like good job, and it's just like they don't dislike each other necessarily. Like they're really respectful, and I love to see that. Like it shows it's a sport, you know, not just like a hateful kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's like a misconception people have watching it, because the average person, their only exposure to like that sort of violence is if some people are angry, and there's like no anger in it. It's you're trying to test your skills to the highest level, and they're trying to test their skills to the highest level, and and then it's like playing chess. Like they're trying to counter your best skill, and you're trying to counter their best skill. So there's really no anger in it at all. In fact, like oftentimes the guys, when you bring in anger, and that's something Connor did really well in his career, is he was able to elicit that out of them and use it against them. But as soon as there is anger or like overload of emotions, people start to not do so well, you know. So
kind of just wing stuff and
exactly.
Like screw their technique.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
No, that was actually, you said something along those lines on The Ultimate Fighter about how you view mixed martial arts as an art form and not a blood sport.
Yeah. Exactly. And that's like one thing I think people forget too. Like we call it martial arts, but some people forget to put the art in it, and I think that's when like I always say, art is anything that like evokes like an emotion in you. Like if you look at a beautiful painting, it makes you feel something, or you hear a great song. And I think guys like Conor in his early fights in the UFC, and Israel Adesanya and Anderson Silva back in the day, they put that art back in it to where you're watching this and you're just like, what is this? It's like you're watching an art form, you know, and that's what's exciting about it.
Yeah, man, I think I love to see it. Like you have to look through it at a certain scope and know what you're watching as a fan and kind of learn about it. Yeah, which is, you know, awesome. If you do that, then you can really understand and appreciate. Like I think one of the first things I fell in love with was the ground game, the jiu-jitsu. I'm like, how the hell did this guy just choking this guy out with his legs? You know, pull up a triangle. You're just like, that is sweet. I didn't even know you could do that. Like that is sweet. Yeah.
That's the thing is just that little bit of appreciation for, and it's I love when I hear people like say things like that they can appreciate, and I'm sure like some people, they'll come and do a couple of classes at a gym and they'll be like, whoa, you know, like right. I saw a funny thing the other day talking about the Olympics. Someone put on Twitter, they're like, I think we need every Olympic event to have a normal person do it first to give us a reference point for how good these people really are. Because like, man, I would like, so you look at some of the people, like using Khabib for an example, when he would just take guys down and smash them.
I love that.
If you put any normal person, even like a big guy, like you could get some dude out of the NFL and put him on top of some of those guys that Khabib held down and say, hold them down. And they would not be able to hold them down. Right. And then they just had, these people were like helpless against Khabib. So
it's disheartening to watch because you're like, there's nothing this guy can do. He tried his like absolute best and wasn't able to get out of like the quicksand that is Khabib.
Exactly. Yeah. So you're just that is an art in itself, because when the other guys I referenced like Adesanya and Silva, it's pretty to watch standing up, but Khabib's was not. It's not, maybe not look as like fluid, or you know, may not look as pretty. But man, it's art. It's an art form in itself. So
the weaponized pace. We were talking about this last night, but like weaponizing pace and pressure is just like
that's
the skill that like goes kind of unnoticed, is like the untalked about like innate ability.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think that's the next level of understanding. If you're watching the sport, is the first thing people see is like the technique, but then there's all the intangibles like pace, like how can you push the pace, and can you control the pace and bring it back, and chin, you know, like things that like people talk about like the Diaz brothers, and they don't really talk about like their chin. They're always talking about, you know, their boxing and their cardio is the thing people talk about the most, but like their chin is, their cardio and their boxing means nothing if they get dropped, you know, and they never do.
I mean, we watch it the same way, but you see them fight and it's just like, how the hell, like Conor obviously has extreme knockout power for his size. Yeah. Leon Edwards knocked plenty of dudes out. Masvidal. Yeah. Even though that was a doctor stoppage, he wasn't down for the count.
Yeah. And that's part of their strategy, I think, is I'm willing to take one to give two back. Or if you hit me, I'm going to hit you back harder.
It makes you wonder, like, do these guys actually have nerves? Like actual nerve endings in their face?
I don't know how they do it. I would love to have seen, like a couple of years ago when Tony Ferguson was like, I would love to have seen like Nate fight Tony in like a no time limit. So it's just it's just 5-minute rounds until someone's done. I don't think it'd get sanctioned, but man, because neither of those guys would give up.
Oh my God,
it'd be pretty awesome.
I think you could still make that happen.
The UFC could make it happen, because that'd just be the whole card though, because that could go for like, they could be
10, 12.
I'm trying to think how long I've done. Like I remember doing some rounds, like we'd start the timer and like legit MMA sparring, and we would say until someone gets subbed, or I forget when we would. yeah, I guess it was till someone got subbed, and we were going for ages, and it changes it because you're not trying to.
You're not gassing out.
Yeah, you have to pace yourself because you don't know if this is going to go like 1 round or 5 or 15. So we were obviously just doing that in training, but it was fun it was something different. Yeah.
Do you have like, going back to Tony Ferguson, like we've seen him on a recent losing streak. Like, do you think that there's just a point in time where like a switch flips on, but like it flips off for fighters? Like it's just like, it's time to hang him up. Like they don't have the juice anymore.
Yeah, I think it definitely does, depending on style. Like I think guys their style is based on like speed and like reaction timing and that sort of stuff. I think that definitely catches up. They start to lose that first before a guy that's based on like strength and whatever. So in theory, like a guy with a style like say Khabib, I think could last a bit longer than a guy who's more like Anderson Silva, where it's like slipping and countering.
Well, I mean, it walks around. So
Yeah.
You're a leader for a while.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I think it is, but it's different for different people. Sometimes a guy having a family, like he might get married and have kids, and he realizes, man, there's more in life than fighting, and I used to see it a lot. I remember when I was young, and I would see guys that have a kid or they have a couple of kids, and you'd see that fire go out, and I'd be like, I'm never going to be like that. But I kind of am. Like for me now, I don't have kids yet, but I have my fiancée Jessa, and we talk about having kids, and I just am like, I couldn't see myself fighting like that. But then you see other guys where they have a kid, and that drives them even more. So it's hard to say what's what for different people, but I definitely think there is like a point for people where something changes. And I think more so for guys like Tony, where they're on a winning streak and then suddenly something changes. It seems like to us like something changes and they're on a losing streak, but I think more what it can be is someone works out the blueprint to beat them, and then everyone else copies that blueprint. So it's not like they might have changed 1% or maybe not even lost anything, but everyone worked out that here's the chink in their armor, you know. So yeah, so maybe it's that. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess kind of circling back to the Ultimate Fighter, we're talking about Noak and Cote, who were pretty big staples of the sport at that point. So what was it like to kind of work with those guys, and then looking into the season, John Jones came and shared the ring with y'all for a little while, and then you were the one to open the door. GSP's just out there standing outside the house.
Yeah, he was super cool. Man, like it was so funny. At the time, I'm sure I was taking it in and enjoying it, but I guess, look, I hope, like it's, I don't know if I realized how big, I was just like, oh, George. I didn't really,
George?
I didn't, I just didn't really like sink in, I guess, at the time. But that was cool, and just being able to learn from those guys. Like I've been so blessed, even before I was in that show and in the UFC, to be able to learn from some great fighters, or people that were at least really experienced and fought on huge stages. Like I remember when I was young, I was 21 and pretty new to the sport. I'd had probably a couple of pro fights maybe, and this guy who he used to fight in Pride, Sokoju. He's like had the long dreadlocks in Pride. He came and fought in some promotion in Australia, and he came and got me to move around with him at the gym and hold pads for him because he didn't have his corner man there yet. And then for the fight, he said, oh, you can corner me, like come corner me. So I was like 21, cornering this dude that fought in Pride, and he was showing me some stuff.
Was it in Pride?
It was in a different promotion. Okay. I can't remember the name of the promotion. And so he showed me some stuff, and that was like the first, and again, like I didn't really realise how big that was. I didn't take it for granted, but I was like, oh, thanks for showing me that. And then only years later, I'm like, man, that was a guy who fought on huge cards in Japan, showing me some stuff. And then I always had little pieces like that of some guys that were just huge stars would show me some stuff. So yeah, that was incredible. And yeah, like obviously on the show we had John Jones. There's some stuff that I still use to this day that he showed me.
Really?
Yeah.
That's awesome. He's for my money, I think he is probably the best of all time mixed martial artists.
Yeah,
He's up there. You know, obviously you got to debate, but my opinion, I think he was like the first one to ever clean out a division the way he did.
Yeah, I think regardless of like what people think of him personally, like on the outside of the cage, which is like he's had his challenges there, like you can't really dispute his performances inside. Like his one like loss, which I don't know, if that's been
It's a no contest because of a 12-6 elbow.
Yeah,
but
and,
you I mean, you know that's kind of bullshit. But
yeah, so like. Yeah, I agree that when people ask me my opinion on him, I just say like, man, it's hard to have an opinion because of you hear so much bad stuff outside. But if they ask my opinion on him as a fighter, like he's incredible, you know. I mean, and to win the championship so young and
keep it
never
lose it.
No, I mean run with it for sure.
Against the best of the best guys, you know, and the best of the best guys across all such a broad spectrum of skills. Time and skills. You've got like DC, who's like an Olympic wrestler, and
DC twice, and DC dismantled people at 205.
Exactly, yeah. And then what's that other guy Thiago Santos, who I thought did actually pretty good, but he's like a really like a powerful striker and
mitigated that.
He handled that, so it is impressive. So I think he's really skill as a fighter. I think he's really good as a person. I mean, I don't know. He was nice to me when I met him. He was really nice to us. So
I'd like that guy to be nice to me.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Like,
no kidding.
I wouldn't want to be mean to him, and I wouldn't like him being mean to me.
Yeah.
That's one hell of a family. Like genetic wise, I mean, his brother's still in the NFL. And he had two brothers in the NFL.
Well, I don't know if this is like hearsay or him being nice to his brother, but I've heard they say that his brother, I don't know which brother, but used to come and help him in camp, like in the wrestling side of things, like hold him on the ground.
They're both bigger than him.
And he would have trouble escaping, like getting up from underneath him, and that's just, you imagine if they actually trained, I imagine that they could probably be a force in the heavyweight division.
Well, I know one of his brothers, the one that's been a Pro Bowler for like the last 10 years, one of the most underrated football players in America, in my opinion. He's like 6'6", so he's about 2 inches taller, and he's about 260, I think. And his other brother, his biggest brother, is, I don't know how tall he is, maybe 6'5", but he was a D tackle, which is the biggest position. He's like probably a solid 300.
Man.
So, I mean, just you talk about elite genetics, and John is one of the most feared men in all of mixed martial arts. Can you give us your take on him moving up to heavyweight and what your kind of initial thoughts are on that?
That's a good question.
Yeah. I don't think it's a bad idea or that it can't work for him. I think against most people, he would do well. I think he's I remember when I was training with him, his frame is huge, you know, like he's super tall and long. So if he puts on that extra weight, that wouldn't be an issue. And also his style isn't necessarily, he's just a very smart fighter. So it's not like his style relies on slipping and countering like Anderson Silva style. He just kind of outsmarts people. When they think he's going to strike, he wrestles. When they think he's going to wrestle, he strikes. So I think he could do really well. The Francis Ngannou versus John that they're talking about, I would love to see it. And I think Francis is just dangerous for any human being on the planet because he just has that freak power. So I want to see it.
Like a Greek statue.
That was funny. The other day, John Jones had tweeted something at somebody who was trolling him, said he was scared to fight Francis, and he's like, everybody in the UFC, even at 205, hits hard. I'm going to jump off a building. What's the difference in jumping from the 7th story or the 10th story? Like,
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's true too. Like he's fought plenty of people who could knock him out. So it's not like Francis is the first guy that could knock him out. Like that Thiago Santos is not people to the spirit realm. I don't. I don't think that would worry him. And I think what makes it even more interesting for people is that people used to be like, oh, well, John can out wrestle him, but then you saw Francis defend the takedown against Stipe and whatever. So now people are like, oh, okay, this could be interesting. So yeah, that I'd love to see it. I don't think it's a stupid move. Yeah.
No, it's definitely, in my head, it's the biggest fight the UFC can put on. But
Yeah.
I think that was an interesting point you touched on about John striking. His wrestling is very good. His grappling, his ground game, all of it. He's just a well-rounded mixed martial artist. So like
Name of it, like he switches it up, so you don't know what's coming.
And I think that's underrated. Like people don't give it enough credit, and even fighters probably don't do it enough. The good ones do it. Is like you've got to if you need to have the skills ideally to do this, but like when they think you want to strike, you wrestle, and when they think you want to wrestle, you strike. Then you can start faking takedowns. You can be a mediocre or not a world-class striker, and if you start shooting some takedowns and get them scared of it, then you can fake takedowns and land strikes, and and John does that, I think, as good as and better than anyone. I think he's probably the best guy at that, is like making you think he wants to do one thing and doing
something else.
I think the mixing it up and kind of like the free form flow of his fighting is like, you never know. You can't ever he doesn't do just like a 1-2 and like does it over and over.
Yeah.
He mixes things up very well, so you can't really like time things.
Yeah, exactly.
He keeps you guessing, which is my person why I think he's one of the best.
Yeah, exactly. I agree, and he has the skills to do it too. Some guys you see him, they'll like go for a takedown, but it's like he's not going to get it. Yeah. So whereas John, he's good in every realm. So that'd be super exciting, and something you just said before about it being the biggest fight the UFC has, and that's like, I think that's one way you can predict the next move of the UFC is always like, what's going to make it?
What's the most money for a day now?
People are like, oh, I don't think it makes sense. It's like, if it makes sense to the bank account, it makes sense to the UFC.
I think that's why I don't know if you're familiar with Sean O'Malley, but I think that's why they're kind of slow rolling him. They're giving him some guys that he can definitely piece up just to like improve his record for one, get the hype train rolling until he gets a title shot or a bigger name. Like most of the time they throw guys in the fire, but Sean O'Malley, I feel like he's a big personality, really good entertainer. They're kind of slow rolling him to get him to the top, and like the household name, kind of like Connor style.
Exactly, and they do that. Like it's not a bad thing. That's
business.
You see it in boxing big time, and back in the day the UFC didn't do it, or mixed martial arts didn't do it, but they're starting to. They did it with Connor for sure, because I said since the early days, since I was at that Chad Mendes fight where he won the interim thing, and Chad Mendes got those takedowns on like 10 days notice, and he gassed out and whatever, and Connor won. And it wasn't that I was anti-Connor or knocking him, but I said, after seeing that, I was like, you watch him get a lineup of guys that aren't like elite wrestlers, because he's the money man, And he did. He got these guys that like, and I said they're going to keep him away from Khabib, like he's like, for as long as they can. Because imagine if he'd won the interim title, beat beat a couple others, and then Khabib, and then it's like hype train's over.
Exactly.
So
they want to milk the train.
They're smart with that, and so for sure I agree. Like I'm not real I know Sean I'm familiar with Sean O'Malley, but I'm not sure with who he's fighting soon or what his skills are. But wouldn't surprise me if they definitely try and build him back up.
I'm not really familiar with either fighter. I mean, he's fought Cheeto Rivera, has lost, but is also injury related. So,
is that Sean you're talking about?
Yeah, Sean O'Malley. Yeah, but like they gave him
Almeida
was on a 4-5 loss streak. I mean, they're giving him Luis Smolka. This guy should definitely be fighting top 10 guys, but they're not on purpose, in my opinion. He knows it.
I've seen him doing that, which is what makes people love him. But it's also, I remember I was actually at one of his fights in Las Vegas, and I can't remember the guy who it was. and it would have been in like 2018. But I don't know, because he recently had that leg. Was it Cheeto Vera, the leg?
Yeah. It was like he hit the peroneal nerve and he had drop foot.
So I don't know if that happened. I don't know if that's a thing, but like if that's an ongoing thing. But in this fight I was at in Las Vegas, something happened to his leg, and I saw it from the stands, and he kind of went back and like fell, and his opponent, I forget who it was, like followed him to the ground, and I'm pretty sure he submitted the guy, and
he was injured during that fight
and he should have I saw from the stands something was wrong with his leg, and I was like, man, his corner should have been like, get the other guy's corner should have made him like make Sean stand up and just kick his leg out again.
Absolutely.
But,
I think that's one of his issues is like he's had injury prone to that one foot for whatever reason.
Yeah.
He had some kind of like Lisfranc surgery or something. I'm not 100% sure, but that is definitely a weak point on his body that like his future better top tier opponents are going to try to capitalize on.
100%. I used to love the Kamaru Usman's foot stomp. I was foot stomping. It was the Badger foot stomp before it was the Usman foot stomp. I would 100% put people against the cage and stomp their toes with my heel.
It doesn't feel good.
No. So I would, if I was that, and I'm sure they will, like Smolka. Is he from, does he fight out of Team Alpha Male?
It wouldn't surprise me, especially at 135. Jamie, get on that.
Yeah, look it up, Jamie. Pull it up. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he does that. Smash it. I would. Like, it's fair game.
Yeah, I mean, you're here to win. You're not going to leave something out of your arsenal just because. But yeah, I mean, we love him just because he's just such an exciting fighter.
Sean?
Yeah, Sean.
Yeah.
I mean,
he is.
I don't know how familiar you are with him, but his striking is just unbelievable. And he's young.
It's exciting.
He's maybe a little bit older than us.
What, 23 or 24, yeah.
Oh, really? I didn't know he's so young. Yeah, no, he's exciting. It is exciting.
And he has that frame for 135. He's big. I mean, like he's just around 6 foot, if I'm not mistaken.
And he doesn't ever look sickly. Like he's not one of those guys that cuts so much weight that he goes in and isn't able to perform to the fullest extent of his ability because he spent so much energy trying to cut pounds.
That's one thing we want to talk about is like weight cut in the UFC and just kind of like obviously like wrestling too, you have to weight cut. But your experience with that and kind of your thoughts
on weight cutting?
Yeah.
So my experience with it has been good and bad. Like I've had good weight cuts, great, like very good easy weight cuts, and I don't mean easy as in I didn't cut much. I mean it just went smooth. And I've had really bad ones. So I can speak to both ends of the spectrum, and it definitely makes a difference. So I fought at 155 with I had George Lockhart helping me, who's like he does like Conor McGregor's nutrition, and he's working now with Tyson Fury in boxing.
Can I interrupt real quick? But it's like when you're weight cutting, you're not necessarily cutting fat off your body to get down to that weight. You're cutting like water weight, right?
Yeah, a bit of both. So like say in that case with George, or in most cases, but so George would gave me like a diet plan and would check in with me really regularly about where my weight was at, and this was for probably 8 or 10 weeks before the fight, and I was probably like 180. I probably naturally now, and I try to eat pretty well, and I'm always training. I'm not training as much as I used to, but I probably sit at like the low 180s. I actually probably was a bit heavier then even because I had a bit more muscle, but like I was probably like 182 to 184, and then eating his diet plan, he would get me down to about 170 by fight week. This is to fight at 155. So that is losing like some either body fat, or you may lose like a tiny bit of muscle, but you're still feeling good. And then that week he has a really specific plan of like what you're going to eat. He actually would bring me my meals. So he comes and stays at the same hotel as you and brings you every meal that week and makes sure where you're at, and then he'll come and sit with you while you're actually cutting the weight. So I can't say enough good things about working with George and his team, and it's really good. But so that was an easy weight cut, even though I cut the same amount of weight that I did in a bad weight cut. But it's just the way he does it, and then the rehydration was big as well.
I heard you have to do it slow. You can't just like chug a bottle of water.
Yeah.
You mess yourself up if you do that.
Yeah. And most fighters, when you hear people talk about a weight cut, they are talking about just ripping fluid out of the body. And for me, like the best was so it would have been like 10 to 12 pounds would have been like the most.
Pure water weight?
Yeah, that would have been the most I want to do. The most I've actually done is like 22 pounds. Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
I was about to say, what percentage of your body weight is that?
That's a sizable chunk.
I don't know, man, because that was
Over 10% at least.
Well, that's when I was fighting at 155 and I was already lean. Like I was so lean, so I was ripping fluid out of places where fluid should come out of, probably like your brain. I don't know. Whereas the weight cut that I did when I started, like I probably only found George too late, you know. Like, and that's the thing. I stopped fighting with plenty of gas and fights left in me. And so it's a double-edged sword. It's one thing I'm happy about because I got out like healthy and
not hurt,
not broken down and not bitter and all that. But at the same time, you're like, damn, could I pushed it a couple more? But you never know. You never know when the wheels come off, you know. So, but I started working with George late, and those were easy weight cuts. But yeah, the tough ones were super tough. I think you hear people saying they should ban weight cutting, they should whatever, they should regulate it. It's hard. I just think, honestly, I have been the smaller guy in fights and that I've won.
They've said that like on the Ultimate Fighter season you were on. They're like, he's naturally a 155er. I'm just thinking to myself, I'm like, size wise, sure he can be a big 155er, but I mean that's just like extreme, you know.
Yeah. So yeah, like it's hard finding where you're at and what works best for you. But I mean, I've won fights at. I'm a small 170, but I've won plenty of fights at 170. Sure. So it's like, it's kind of just finding what works for you, what works for your style. And I think it's going to self-regulate eventually, where guys are going to work out cutting, you know, I don't know, like between 6 and 10 pounds might work, but anything more doesn't work. Whereas traditionally it was almost like if you could
get as small as you can to be the biggest guy.
And they have regulated it a lot now. Back in the Wild West days when I started, the standard is set by the guys at the top, you know, and the top guys in the UFC were coming out of like, you know, Division 1 wrestling programs, and it was like the gloves were off when it came to weight cutting. They would cut like 30 pounds or like 20 pounds or 15, 20 pounds, and then they would use an IV.
They were experienced at that because they've been doing it their entire lives.
Exactly. And then that was another problem, is like there was those guys that were experienced at it, and it may not be beneficial for their body, but they were used to competing like that. And then if you were a guy who wasn't used to that, you thought you had to at least cut the same to keep up with them. And it just was like everyone was trying to push the envelope further and further. And luckily, no one in the UFC did. But there's a guy a couple of years ago in ONE FC died.
They I don't know if you know this. They implemented hydrating testing to make sure that people have enough hydration.
I know a couple of guys who fight in it, and they talked me through it because I didn't quite understand it. But
we're not familiar with it.
You've got to they weigh you. I think it's like 6 weeks out. Or no, they don't weigh. I think they weigh you and they hydration test you.
Right.
6 weeks out, 4 weeks out, 2 weeks out, 1 week out, and you've got to be at a certain weight above. Like you can't be too far over your fight weight, and you also have to be hydrated. So, because I was like, well, you could just, when you know they're coming to your gym, you can just sweat it out.
Yeah.
They test. So basically, you're essentially fighting at your walk around weight, and if everyone's doing that, it's cool.
No, for sure.
Yeah, we were familiar with one guy that fights in that promotion. His name's Sage Northcutt.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
He went to my high school.
He went to his high school.
No way.
And we're from the same area, so I would always see him at the gym. Like when I first started going, like when I was like 13, 14 years old. And I just the guy's like maybe a year or two older than me. I just look at him like, I'm just a regular kid, and this guy is just absolutely shredded to the gills. And I'm just like, at 15, 16 years old, I'm like, what in the hell?
No, before him, I've never seen anybody rip an apple in half. He twists it and rip it in half.
I saw him do that, man. I saw him recently. I saw a post. Someone posted a photo of him. And
He
I was like,
big.
damn, I think he's been raiding the Mexican supplement. I'm pretty.
That's a genetic elite.
Yeah. To look like that, you got to be genetically really good. And I don't like saying anyone's on something, but I've never seen a guy look like that. I don't mean when he was in the UFC, but now he's super thick with the double C.
With the double C. I mean, the guy could go on stage and compete in a bodybuilding competition, for Christ's sake. But
so, he's in one now. I hope he's doing good. Like, he seems like a really nice guy. And I hate seeing,
hopefully we can get him on. I mean, he's from our hometown.
So he's from Katie, right?
Yeah, that's where we're from.
Oh, okay, cool. There you go. Get him on.
Big K.
Just go over there and tell him, get him on. But I'll arm wrestle him now. I hate seeing, he obviously was super talented and...
he got in young. Like, he was in the UFC like in his early 20s.
Yeah, he's super talented and obviously like an Adonis. He's like physically gifted, and I think some people kind of like almost wanted to bring him down because of that, maybe. And I know some people were like happy that he got some losses, and I was like, it sucks. That sucks.
It's dirty rooting against a guy like that. Like, obviously, like, you have, like, you want a certain guy to win, but you do, like, there's never a time that you want this guy just to get absolutely mauled. That's just kind of unethical in, like, a sporting
and, like, what
view.
happened in his loss in one with that Cosmo.
Yeah.
That's, like, man, I hate seeing that happen to anyone because it's, like, it's his career, and so, I hope he's
His sister's pretty good too, and
does she fight?
Yeah, she fights in one as well. I don't know if you're familiar with Raymond Daniels, but he's a karate guy.
Yeah.
He won a few weeks ago. That way, I saw him one on TNT. I'm glad that they're having that on television. But I guess, like, can you like explain like the karate style and like obviously you see the guys that are really good at it and they just dominate. You got Wonder Boy, Michael Venom Page, Raymond Daniels, guys like those that are just really good at moving in and out, and their striking is phenomenal. And if they can obviously get the wrestling defense.
Yeah, well, like, to explain it, well, I mean, obviously I'll explain it as well as I can with my understanding. I'm not a karate guy, but
like if you were to like attack that kind of guy.
Yeah, so the thing that it didn't have a lot of momentum, or like, it was people kind of back in the day of the UFC or MMA would kind of laugh at it and joke about it because of the lack of success it had in, say, the early UFCs, like UFC 1 and etc. But just the basic, like the fundamental skills it can give a guy is actually really good, so long as they work on their wrestling, takedown defense, and ground game. A lot of people think if you're a good striker, just work on your takedown defense, but the reality is there's a high chance someone's going to get you down at some point. So if you've only been doing takedown defense, you then hit the ground and then it's like game over. So more so what I say to guys that come from a strong striking background is really focus on the ground to like get real comfortable off your back and the ability to get up, not just stopping takedowns. Because if a guy just sends takedowns at you and you might defend the first 3, 4 and then he gets one,
you get caught, like it just...
Yeah, then it's game over. So I think primarily, like, my focus when I'm training a guy who's a good striker is his ability to get up off his back. Then we can work on takedown defense. Because then, like, even if he does get you down, you can get up. So as long as a guy gets that ability, I think what the karate style and stance and skills gives people is a real elite understanding of distancing, which a lot of people, which is one of those things that people don't...
It's an innate ability,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, and people don't, like people watching don't give it enough credit because what they want to see or what they give credit to is punches that land, like kicks that land, takedowns, whatever, but they don't.
Significant strikes.
Exactly, but they don't, the ability for a guy to slide out and make someone miss, they see it, but they don't give it that much credit. But if a guy has that ability, like Wonder Boy or those guys,
I mean, it's not even like they're dodging punches by a mile and like bending over like 5 feet. They're so good at the distancing that they can move like within an inch.
Yeah, exactly.
They know how far to move their head to dodge something, and that allows them to counter with a better strike.
Yeah, and so, that is obviously a big advantage. The other advantage, I think, that style. So all those guys we're talking about, like Wonder Boy, and like Sage Northcutt and
Michael Venom Page.
They're all. I'm pretty sure they're all like point style fighting, which gives them that ability to like close the distance, explode in, explode back out, and so that's an advantage in itself. As opposed to there's some styles of karate which is more like Kyokushin, which is like you just walk in and there's a lot of leg kicks. It's probably closer to Muay Thai in a sense. But you see the point style karate guys being able to come in and out, so that's an advantage, and I think a huge advantage that they have is you don't see it. It's not a common skill. So
absolutely
same
not.
as if you're in a gym, the most common stance is orthodox stance more than southpaw. So you see so much. If a guy's just been come up and he hasn't had a ton of experience, he might have sparred a ton of rounds against another orthodox fighter, and then he meets a southpaw and he doesn't really know, he can't really get things working. Well then, an even more extreme example is the karate stance, where like you go to an average gym and there's no one there doing that karate stance, and even if they are, they're not doing it well. They're not exploding in and exploding out.
It's hard to train for, is what you're saying. Like,
it's hard to train against.
Exactly. That's what I mean.
Yeah, exactly. So even if you look at
even if you get somebody there, you can't obviously those guys that we just talked about, Wonder Boy and them, are just so elite at that one particular skill that like a really good karate fighter is not going to be able to replicate necessarily.
Exactly. So, and that's the thing is like those guys we mentioned, like Wonder Boy Thompson, Sage Northcutt, and Raymond Daniels. They're not even just they're not just point fighting karate guys. They're like world class at it. Like they were very good at it. So, and then they've learned how to translate that to MMA. So if even if you were like, you had to fight one of those guys and you're like, oh, what am I going to go down to the local karate school and see if Sensei Doug will spar some rounds with me, because Sensei Doug is not going to be Wonder Boy Thompson's level, So it's just hard. It's greatest. I think one of the things, there's a lot that makes it effective, but one of the biggest things is that it's hard for people to train against, and the ability to be so far away, which is so important in MMA. Like I say to people when they're starting out, I say your biggest thing that's going to help you to defend strikes and defend takedowns is your footwork. It's not like how do I block this, how do I whatever. It's like if you move your feet and you're not even there, and those then you can defend it. And those point karate guys are really good at that. So I think it's cool, and kind of tying it into the fights coming up. The first Conor Poirier fight kind of had that similar stance that he fought really side on and had that ability to close, and then the second fight we saw him adopt more of like a boxing stance, and things obviously didn't go so well. So it'll be interesting to see if he goes back to that karate stance, Conor.
More on that fight.
Personally, do you think that like the money, his fame, his just superstar status, I think personally we've seen a change in his fighting, since he fought Floyd Mayweather and when he was a simultaneous double champ. Like, do you think that took the dog out of him? Like that kind of just like, obviously it didn't hurt his skill, but like it took the dog. It took like, look, I'm coming from nothing. Like
it might have. It's hard to say because like I couldn't get inside his head and know that. I don't know. I don't know if it's that or if now he's suddenly at that level where the guys are just, there's just a 1% difference between all those other guys he was beating. Like if you look at Aldo, that was like a one-shot thing. Aldo is obviously a beast, but so he got rid of it in one shot, so you couldn't see any more than that. But one thing I think now when he's fighting like guys like Dustin and
obviously Dustin is one of the best at lightweight.
Yeah, and who was before that, Khabib. So is like there's no chinks in those guys' armor mentally, and if there's one thing, honestly I don't think it's that it. I mean, that must have made a difference. You couldn't get like $100 million or more. I think he's worth $300 million.
He's worth a lot of money.
And it not in a way, but I think he's that kind of guy where more than money, he's now motivated by that. Like he hates losing, and a guy just knocked him out, so he wants to get that back. But so I think more than, and you saw him do it with Nate. Nate finished him, and he came back and he beat Nate, even though it was a close decision. But
still a banger fight.
Yeah, it was a good fight. I think more than, I think the thing with Conor that like some people may not see or whatever, and I might be seeing it wrong, but I see like a chink in his armor when things start getting a bit rough.
On his end,
yeah. Pace-wise and position-wise, I just think that things start to snowball downhill for him, whereas there's some guys who you can have them on the ropes and have them pretty much out of there, and that like
they're comfortable.
Dustin and Nate, like look at Nate.
Yes,
Nate
absolutely.
He has against Leon Edwards, Leon beat the brakes off him for four rounds, nearly 5 rounds minus the last minute, and still nearly got finished. And
almost finished Leon.
Yeah, and I don't think that. I think if you could put Conor in that position within a round or two, something in him just quits. I don't want to say quits, but like.
But that's what you mean.
I don't. Yeah, mate. I don't think it's quits. I don't think he just goes. I think it's he. There's certain guys out there where you can be beat, like Nate. You can be beating him, and they don't think they're losing. And I remember talking to, there was a guy in Australia who was a good Muay Thai fighter, like a world class one. He had fights with John Wayne Parr and stuff, and he just saying to him, man, he'd had a come from behind victory, kind of what Nate nearly did the other day. Yeah. And saying, what's going through your head when you're like losing rounds like that and whatever? And he's like, I don't think I'm losing. So that ability to be like. To everyone else you're losing, but to you're only one. And the good competitors that I know, like Dan Kelly, that guy that went to 4 Olympics and has wins over like Rashad Evans in the UFC, and he would always say like you're only ever one punch away from winning, or you're only ever one technique away from winning. And you got to remember that instead of being like, oh man, I'm underneath and this guy's beating me up. And I just don't. I think that's a chink that Conor has that I know Dustin does not have. Yeah. So if Conor wins this fight, I feel like it's got to be early and it's got to be dominant, like pressure based, and he's got to chin him.
Well, he has to fight his fight, right?
Yeah, exactly. And if you look at all his fights that he does well in, or has done well in it, he fights his fight early, he puts on the pressure, he controls the range, and then he lands like shots that take the person out. And I don't think he's been in a position, apart from like Nate, you could say there was times when Nate did well against him and then he came back and won that decision, but I don't feel like there's been times when he's been like really under the pump and then being able to bring it back. You know, the ones he's won, he gets momentum going his way early and he keeps momentum his way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Actually, you know, like I should say against Khabib was winning those early ones, and then he won probably the third or the second round, like Conor did. Yeah. So I'm not saying that if you can put the pace on Conor, he'll just quit. I'm not saying that, but it's just I think the thing about, I feel that Dustin could be losing 4.5 rounds and still win in the end, and I don't think Conor could. So on the flip side, I think Conor it has to take the pace, take the control early, you know?
No, absolutely. I think pace and pressure favors Poirier, but an overexertion of pressure and aggression is probably going to favor Conor in terms of his counter style.
Exactly. And that's what makes it interesting is like Poirier needs to keep that pace going and the pressure, but if he's too desperate, he'll run into something. And I think the key there is to know that the pace and the pressure is to your advantage. And if it's not necessarily working in a big way, don't be worried. And I think a good example of that is back in the day when GSP, George St. Pierre fought BJ Penn in their second fight. And all GSP did was like shoot in and push him against the cage. Didn't even try and get takedowns. He might have gone for him only to get BJ to like lift him back up, and he'd go for it again only to get BJ to lift him back up. And he wasn't getting disheartened that he wasn't getting takedowns, only because he didn't actually want the takedown.
Right.
What he wanted was to keep the pace there and to keep BJ using his arms and pummeling and having to do the wrestling, because he knew it'd pay off in the long run. And I think that's where guys have fallen on their sword, like against Conor, is they do these techniques actually wanting them too bad. So they'll shoot wanting the takedown, and when Conor stuffs it because he's got some good skill there, they kind of panic. They get up and they panic and they go, oh no, I didn't get him down. Whereas they need to just get up and be like, whatever, and then keep boxing, shoot again, let Conor almost wear himself out, rather than
not being too invested in those takedowns, but using it as
exactly.
Yeah.
So I think the biggest thing, the difference is like you got to push the pace without desperation. Like if you push the pace desperately, Conor will knock you out. If you push the pace as a tactic, you can use it against him, and that's the difference, I think. So
Absolutely.
I think maybe like talking about the next fight, like we already mentioned Wonderboy, but him versus Burns, like what are your initial thoughts on that?
Man,
Two completely different styles.
yeah, super different styles. I know Burns is a world jiu-jitsu champion, I think, but he's had a ton of success recently with his striking. I don't think that striking is going to worry Wonderboy, to be honest, but I might be wrong.
I mean, he wobbled Usman in there.
Yeah, I just think Wonderboy's footwork and movement.
Absolutely.
I mean, he did so well against that Vicente Luque guy, who's an incredible striker, really great striker. I love watching him, and Wonderboy did well against him, and also against Woodley, who's a powerful striker. I know tactically what Woodley did against Wonderboy is he kind of didn't do anything. He knew Wonderboy's the counter striker, so Woodley didn't initiate, which kind of led to this weird lull, but it was smart. And I wonder if Gilbert, being like that guy that wants to come forward and land some heavy stuff.
Do you think that he's going to shoot and try to take him down to the ground? Obviously, I think that's what everybody's initial thought is, but Wonderboy's takedown defense is at the point where that's why he's a top 5 fighter and he wouldn't be otherwise.
Yeah, I can't remember, I used to know the statistic on Wonderboy's takedown defense, but it was like, it's super high. Like not many people have taken him down ever, I don't think. So he might try. I don't know if he's going to get him down. So I think Gilbert's best, 100% best option or best
shot at winning.
Yeah, shot at winning would be to do exactly what we were talking about, what John Jones is good at, which is really mix between the levels really well. So maybe come in early and shoot some takedowns without actually necessarily wanting them, and but just to get Wonderboy thinking that he's doing that, and then start faking it and coming back upstairs for the strikes, then start faking the strikes, looking for the takedowns. So that'll increase both areas, So
do you think clinch work? Because like personally, if I was Gilbert Burns, like obviously you're going to initially think takedowns, get him on the ground, try to do your thing. But I think clinch work might have a lot. If he can get him against the fence, I think clinch work might be his best option to kind of win this fight.
Maybe, yeah, I think so. Like it definitely wouldn't hurt. I think putting him against the cage and just the thing is with I like the cage for you're pushing a guy there, leaning on him, and making him pummel and making him work to tire his arms out to take the sting off their striking, which is I think a real good tactic against like a Conor McGregor. But Wonderboy, it's not even his hands that are the biggest weapon or the most dangerous weapon; it's his legs. So it's how do you counter that? And so maybe putting him against the cage and landing some like short knees against the cage and those foot stomps and doing that early. But I definitely think just mixing those levels up because I think what Wonderboy's been so good at is get in there, defend takedowns enough to make a guy doubt himself, and then you're stuck in his world, and then he picks guys apart. Trouble. So I think just not falling into that, like going for takedowns more as almost like half-assing takedowns as a tactic, and not worrying when you don't get them, but getting Wonderboy at thinking defense and then start landing those strikes. And with Gilbert having that one punch knockout power, but he's not going to land it if he just tries to land just the strike. So he's got to mix it up with takedowns, I think. Yeah.
You have anything to add on that, Zach?
You know, I think you kind of said it at the beginning of this podcast when we started talking that if you're not a wrestler when you're young, you're never going to be able to have the wrestling ability that some of the guys that have been doing it their entire lives do. Yeah. But if you are a really good striker like Wonderboy, like Adesanya, like Silva was, you can develop adequate enough wrestling defense to keep it from getting to that point.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I think just kind of piggyback off of what he says, like the wrestler versus the striker, the prototypical matchup. I mean, you always say if it's staying on his feet, the striker is winning. But a lot of time you see like a great striker, unique striker getting taken down by a wrestler and just kind of being dominated and is on the ground and in the ground game kind of world, I guess. Like, why is that just so much different? Like, can you explain the different kind of worlds and like the domination, I guess?
Yeah, like what is different in what sense? Like
like just like how there's such a like advantage if you're a great wrestler and the guy can't be not taken down.
Oh yeah, okay. So wrestling obviously is such a big advantage and a key because if you have pretty good striking and really good wrestling, then you can stop someone taking you down and strike with them. Or if you're a good grappler and you have really good wrestling too, you definitely can take someone down. The difference in the domination aspect of like, obviously if you're in there with a world-class striker, it can be bad because you're getting lit up. But you can also, you see it sometimes where there'll be two guys, one will be a very nice, like orthodox, like fundamentally sound, or more than sound, like fundamentally excellent striker, and they're in there with a guy who, like, say, like a Mike Perry type guy, who he may not look pretty all the time, but he can make it into a dogfight.
Like a brawl.
Yeah, and he can land some good stuff. You can see that in striking in different scenarios, but you don't really see that in grappling. Grappling is much more like if one guy is that dominant and he gets a guy down, it's just like claustrophobic almost. It's like you're stuck under someone trying to suffocate you.
Does it sap your will? Like a little bit if you know that you tried your hardest and still can't get out from underneath this guy.
It definitely saps your will more than striking. Because just the nature of MMA fighters at an elite level to be in the UFC, they're tough and hard-headed. So they can be getting beaten up and cut open and whatever, and they're still mentally like, I'm in this fight, I just got to land that one punch.
Right.
And they stay in the fight, and you see it happen too. There'll be a guy who's on the receiving end and he's bloodied up, and then he lands that shot. Like we were saying about Matt Brown when he just fought Diego Lima. Like he was on the receiving end of some pretty rough stuff in that first round. It definitely wasn't Matt wasn't one side of winning. It was kind of a little back and forth, and maybe Diego was winning maybe. And then he came out and just starched him, you know.
Yeah.
Whereas wrestling wise, if a guy's doing a Khabib to you and just taking you down, and I always remember that one of Khabib's fights against Abe Trujillo, and I think he set a new takedown record. He basically take the guy down, let him stand up, take him down again, let him stand up, take him down again, and
that'd break your will.
And you saw there was a point where the guy was fighting up, and he'd get taken down. He would fight his way up, and then there was a point where he just became like a rag doll, because it's like his will just left, and he just was getting thrown around. So, wrestling, it just really can steal someone's will in a different way than striking can, I feel, and also just the nature of wrestlers. The US has obviously a really strong program of youth wrestling and high school wrestling and college wrestling, which is a good training ground. And then you see the guys coming out of like Dagestan, they're all beasts. But it just forces you to become I used to love wrestling. I mean, I still do love wrestling. But I remember training wrestling was probably my favorite thing to train, because it's like. You can go do pad work and striking and have a really good day and feel sharp. Striking is really good to make you feel sharp and explosive, but nothing makes you feel like more of a fighter in the sense of like I can break anyone's will than wrestling. And it gives you that ability, and it also strengthens your resolve. And that's why you see so many wrestlers in elite mixed martial arts, like in the UFC, that are they're just mentally tough guys, because every day in the wrestling room is just tough. Like your training partners, the domination we're talking about in MMA, your training partners in high school are trying to do that to you every day in practice. Yeah. So if they can pin you down and hold you down, they will all day. So you get guys that have been doing that since they're 5 years old.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's no out. There's like, if you're getting dominated on the striking aspect, you can take it or you can at least try to take it to the ground.
Attempt.
And try to change the fight. But if you're on the ground, you have one option. It's either try, get
up or reverse.
Yeah, get up or reverse.
Yeah, and so, man, it's tough, but it's definitely being dominated like that is going to break some people, and that's where guys that have that ability, like those guys from Dagestan, they got a big advantage, So
I don't know what's up with them, but they're the new American wrestlers.
Oh, dude, yeah,
It's just the culture there is different.
I think so, yeah. I think must be a ton of contributing factors to that. Like it's a tough place to grow up culturally. I think it's like their sports, like their national sport in Dagestan is MMA and wrestling.
Combat sambo.
I didn't realize.
Sambo.
Yeah, so I didn't realize that a ton. You hear I know Russia's always had a strong wrestling presence in like the Olympics, but I didn't realize that quite a high percentage of those guys that represent Russia actually come from Dagestan. So it's it makes sense now.
I mean, they kind of put Dagestan on the map. I've never heard of Dagestan in any other context other than mixed martial arts. And
no one had. So it's, have you seen, there's actually, I think it's on ESPN, there's a good documentary, it's called Dagestan Rising. And you should watch it. You'd enjoy it. But it's about the PFL. I think it's produced by the PFL, which is like professional fight league.
Yeah, professional fighter league. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So it's cool because it highlights. There's probably 4 Dagestanis in the PFL, and it highlights them, and it shows. But it also shows a bit about their mentality, and I mean they're really coming from nothing.
I think like in any. Whatever you do in life, that the risk that you take and like just putting it all on the line, you can see a lot of successful people. They just put everything they have on the line, especially in fighting. It's like you give it your all. You're like, if I fail, I was at rock bottom before.
Yeah, exactly.
If I fail at this, I'm going back to the same place I was at.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think that's those Dagestani guys too. Is like. They really are. Like, man, that place they all love the place, but it looks pretty rough. So,
I'm sure it's no, United States, big metropolitan city.
Yeah, so I think it gives them a good, tough upbringing, but it also gives them that motivation that they want a bit more. I'm sure they all want to go back and live there, but they'd love to go back with a few $1 million from fighting. So, yeah, they're doing well.
Yeah, hey, I mean, Khabib, I think he still lives there, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. I really like him. I really like his style and his,
I think his style is the hardest to replicate and the easiest to say, oh, somebody else could do this.
Oh, yeah. I know from experience, because, I mean, my style, like, what I liked doing in MMA was very much what he did. I love to, like, box my way in, get a takedown, and then ground and pound. So I know from experience how hard that is, because, like, he made it look easy against the best guys in the world, and it is not hard against a skilled guy to stop him getting back up or stay out of submissions. And he was staying out of subs against world-class guys, putting on subs against world-class guys.
Yeah, I mean, everybody knew what his game plan was. Nobody was able to stop it.
Yeah.
He just imposed his will when everybody tried everything.
Yeah.
The
Exactly.
strikers, wrestlers, American wrestlers, jiu-jitsu's guys.
Yeah.
Nobody could really just come up with a game plan and combat for his. And it wasn't like he was doing anything groundbreaking. He was just so much better at it than everybody else that, like, he made it look easy, which is not something you see very often, especially in championship fights.
Yeah, exactly. So true. Man, beast.
Man's a beast. But I guess that's going to kind of bring us to an end. We're running close to about 2 hours. Want to be respectful of your time, man. And got some fights coming on here pretty soon, if I'm not mistaken. So I guess who do you think's going to win the trilogy? Let's just end there. Give us a pick. Who do you think's going to win, Connor or Dustin?
Oh, man. This is okay, guys. Don't bet a lot of money on what I say, because I don't want to feel bad. But I would say if I'm going to say, and this is tough. This is a tough one. If we see Karate Stance Connor come back, and I want to say this, I want Dustin to win. I like Dustin. I really, I love what he's about. I love his style, whatever. I think if we see Karate Stance Connor, it could be Connor within 1 or 2 rounds. If we see, I think if it goes past round 2, so if it like if the bell rings for round 2 and we come back out, I think it starts to go towards Dustin. So I'm not going to tell you who to bet on, but I'm going to say, I'm going to go with my heart and go, I want Dustin to win, so I'm going to go Dustin.
You heard it here, folks. Brendan, the Badger O'Reilly locks in Dustin the Diamond Poirier.
Put on all your money on it. Now I've just done a complete reversal. bet your house on it.
Bet your house on it. I'm Zach. That's Gabe. This is Brendan, and this is another episode of the CKE signing out.